Back on the Boulevard, Thursday, April 13th. As always, here to prove to you there is no such thing as football season. 1 month till we crown the DC Defenders the XFL champions, and I can cash my plus 650 ticket that I took in the preseason. Criminal that I got it at that price, by the way. It was like the 6th or 7th best odds on the board. And DraftKings offering me that cash out, I won't take it. We're keeping this till May 13th. I'm clutching this ticket. I got diamond hands on it, and I cannot wait. 1 more month of the XFL season. That's 32 of 43 games down. And this throwback jersey that's behind me from 2020, you may get new ones. XFL hinting at potentially releasing jerseys on XFL Shop. And listen, I'm a sucker for a fresh jersey. That white camo that DC puts on their threads, I would love to snatch one up, put it here on the Springball Boulevard set, even though it'll probably cost us $169.99 from what I've been hearing. I'm going to get Zook's opinion here on who he's going with for the jersey. The producer, director, and owner of the humble abode we call Studio Z, Chris Zook. Who's on your short list for Seattle jerseys? I know you've got all kind of collector's merch already as you've been accumulating it throughout the season. We each got to get a jersey. Are you going with the orange or the white?
Orange for sure.
And who are you going with?
Peasy, maybe a little Lindsay on top. I don't know. We'll see.
I would love to see you rock 0. Not just for Flash Gordon, but for the amount of times you beat DC this year. I think that'd be a fitting number for Chris Zook.
Going back to how you opened up the show, you should probably cash out now because DC is not winning a title.
They're giving it to me at, I think, 4-1.
Yeah,
it's pretty good right now.
I'm sure your cash out now is what it.
I think current odds are.
It's better than making nothing because they ain't winning.
For DC to win the title right now, I think it's about -110.
Who you going with? Who's your jersey?
I already got a number 1 for DeAndre Tompkins. I got to go De'Aaron King. I got to go number 3.
Wow.
He's been my guy this year. I put him on the set. We'll see. I think they're going to customize the jerseys so you can put your own name on it. Maybe get
I would like that
Studio Z jersey or a Zook jersey or something like that.
Yeah,
I know Mikey's going to be all over the number 2 Manziel look for that black and red Vipers, but it's exciting. We've waited a long time for jerseys. We want to see them for sale at games. We want to see them for sale on the shop. I think XFL 2020, we got it a lot earlier than this. And the customizable ones were expensive. But listen, when it comes to jerseys, don't complain about the price because you know you're going to buy one. And that's exactly why the XFL is going to jack the price up because of supply and demand. They're going to be in high demand. Anyway, on tonight's show, we have 2 interesting cross-divisional matchups that are leading us into the game of the week. Seattle visiting St. Louis with playoff hopes on the line. This is everybody's easy choice for game of the week. Mike Mitchell delivered us TV ratings from week 8. Battlehawks Vipers from Saturday pulled 870,000. Not bad for ESPN. Well on track, I think, for a 7-figure number in week 9 for this standalone sequel between Seattle and St. Louis. Listen, people are wired to watch pro football on a Sunday afternoon. And the Saturday game pulling in 870,000 is very encouraging for me. I know a lot of you pro football fans don't bother with the college game. Couldn't be me. I love college football, but some of you may only watch football on Sundays. So this is a big Sunday for the league to come through. We're going to break all the games down for you, including the game of the week. And remember, the March Madness Masters gauntlet that the XFL just went through is now over. So you think about your competition now. What is the XFL up against? NBA playoffs. Don't have to tell you that's a waste of your time completely. Just not worth watching. I think 80% of the league has made the playoffs. So what's even the point with that? You also have the summer league starting up again. And just save yourself the confusion when the Philadelphia team is playing a home game in Ohio. Just watch the XFL and watch the St. Louis Battlehawks potentially get 45,000 in that stadium this weekend. We got another Boulevard Bowl Tour stop to unveil, and it's going to be really tough to top. Last weekend was our 5th stop in St. Louis. We saw our first XFL overtime, something I'll never forget. We'll tell you where we're headed, and of course, it wouldn't be Springball Boulevard without our Week 9 best bets. Can't believe I'm saying this, guys. I'm staying away from most of the sides this week. I told you earlier in the season, I'm away from the totals. I'm kind of reversing course. I may have added a total to my card this time around because those sides outside of DC have not been very kind to me. So we'll tap into the totals and see what we can get for you here. Make sure you drop a like on the video if you're live with us on this Thursday night. Subscribe to the channel. Not too many episodes left, which means not too many chances for you to get an entry in our PlayStation 5 Pick'em. Yes, we are still giving away a Sony PlayStation 5 before the XFL Championship game. If you go 4 for 4 in week 9 or 10, so only one of two chances left to do it, you have an entry to a PS5 Pick'em that is now about 50 or 55 strong. It keeps going up. A lot of people with more than one entry that have been following us along since show 1 and week 1. But you know how it works with those lottery balls. I don't know how we're going to draw it yet. I think we should do, instead of just picking one out of the hat, we should just get like a lottery machine, Zook, and pop a ball out of there and put maybe somebody's face on it. If you can all send us a headshot, we'll put your face on a lottery ball and draw that way. But we'll have a fair way to draw that. Just make sure you get your entries in. The most important part, it's free. We don't charge you a dime to watch Springball Boulevard. We don't put our content behind a paywall, and we certainly don't charge you to play in our content. So this is good value here. A lot of these sweepstakes that you'll enter, you're up against 1 million people. This one, like I said, 100 entries. Really good shot. I like your odds to win a PS5 if you go 4 for 4. So jump in that. We also have Orlando quarterback Quinten Dormady coming up on Springball Series. This was a great conversation. Quinten has faced a ton of adversity in his life on and off the field, and we sat down and chatted with him. We will show you that coming up here soon. But let's take a look at the XFL standings update. Not much has changed here from a 1 through 4 perspective in the North. For a while now, ever since St. Louis has had that tiebreaker over Seattle, it's kind of gone this way. DC at 1, St. Louis 2, Seattle 3, and Vegas at 4. In the South, Houston has been on top pretty much the entire season. Arlington is chasing. They are now 1 game out of the South lead, but they don't have the tiebreaker, so some work to do there. Apparently, San Antonio is still alive. They've been marketing to their fans to please come out because we're still alive in the playoffs. Not exactly sure how that works. I guess it's because they beat Arlington once. And technically, Arlington could finish the season 4-6. San Antonio could finish 4-6. But the Brahmas are going to have to win their last 2 home games for that to happen. So, interesting scenario there. I guess Arlington could end up 4-6. They're going to be underdogs in DC this weekend and then in Houston week 10. So, sucks, but the good chance a 4-6 team could end up making the playoffs, which is just going to be a dagger through Chris Zook's heart. If Seattle finishes 7-3 and misses the playoffs for a 4-6 team, I really hope, for everybody's sake, that doesn't happen. So there's your standings. Let's get into some games here, guys. What do we make of the Houston Roughnecks? One side of the fence, we find a team that is likely going to be in the XFL Championship game representing the South Division. One of the brightest young minds in the league running this offense, littered with weapons all over the skill positions. They have a knack for great defense, leading the league in both sacks and picks. So no wonder they're a 6.5 point home favorite Saturday, right? Hosting 2-6 Vegas. Well, how about the other side of the fence? Consider this for a moment. Let's take off those rose-colored Roughnecks glasses that some of us have been wearing. We see a team who was scoring 30.5 points, average their first 4 games of the season, has crashed like Bitcoin. Now 18 points per game, the last 4 out. So have the Houston Roughnecks peaked early? We talk about this all the time with championship teams in every level. You have to peak at the right time. Did Houston hit their peak early? Or did they just need to win ugly and get their mojo back, right, to prepare for this stretch run? Remember, this was the unofficial 2020 champions, so there's something to play for here for Houston to defend the title. Back in XFL 2020, all of us who followed the league 3 years ago someone had to win it. You can't just say, oh, the season's over. No, the Houston Roughnecks were 5-0. This is their chance to defend a title. And now at 5-3, a chance to win this week and amass their win total from 2020. Let's take a look at how A.J. Smith and that air raid offense matches up with Vegas this weekend. First of all, if you're AJ, you're certainly not happy with averaging 126 pass yards per game in your last two. The good news for them, that was against the top two pass defenses in the league. So it's a little bit of an excuse. The numbers weren't there, obviously, but at least you have that going for them. Now you draw Vegas. They are 7th in pass defense. They give up 220 through the air per game. A.J. McCarron, Ben DiNucci, both had field days against this Vegas Vipers secondary. Will Brandon Silvers or will Cole McDonald come in? Interesting decision for A.J. Smith this week. For whoever starts at quarterback, they have a little bit of an advantage here. Protecting Silvers might not be so easy. Haven't been too impressed with the Houston offensive line as of late. And when you got guys like Peta, who has 7.5 sacks for the Vipers, and Max Roberts, who's been tearing it up, I mean, obviously Vic Beasley is a problem. You got some guys who can rush the passer for the Vegas Vipers. So they're going to have, we said it time and time again, Brandon Silvers is not great at escaping the pocket, not the best mobility. So you better believe Chris Dishman and Rod Woodson are going to dial up those blitzes. We saw C.J. Avery. He's another guy who had probably the hit of the season on Darius Shepard. I was there in attendance for that St. Louis-Vegas game, and it just sucked the life out of the building. Like, when you think of a collective sigh, C.J. Avery absolutely crushed Shepard. Good thing he was okay, but what a hit it was. Some hard hitters here for Vegas, and I know the last 2 weeks, their secondary has faced St. Louis without A.J. McCarron and San Antonio, who's not anywhere competent in the pass game. But for Vegas, they've looked a little bit better. And naturally, I'm sure Rod Woodson's happy about that because he is a Hall of Fame cornerback. So your DB's got to be good. Marwin Evans, Mo Smith both got themselves in the box score with interceptions. Deontay Anderson made a really acrobatic play, a nice pick against San Antonio a couple of weeks ago. So, you know, this secondary, how much can you really trust them? I don't know. It depends what Houston you're going to get, what kind of offense you're going to see. And I didn't think we saw enough of Houston's run game. They just simply evaporated in the run game against the San Antonio Brahmas. Only 13 carries combined. And I thought Max Borghi was coming off a solid game. I think he had like 9 carries for 52 yards against St. Louis. He was well over 5 yards per carry, but they didn't feed him against the Brahmas. They have to. He's a very talented player. But this all comes back to Brandon Silvers offensively, and he's probably going to get the start. Have to make better decisions, and he can't do that unless he's first protected. So Houston offense, slight edge here, not as big as you think. Let's flip sides of the ball. Look at the Vegas offense this week, definitely a statistical outlier in the Vegas offensive scheme. 208 rushing yards against St. Louis. Where did that come from? This was not a team that was running the ball efficiently all season. And the first time out against St. Louis, they managed only 43 yards on the ground. So this was a considerable improvement for that offense and Ray Sherman. Jalen McClendon opens up the offense in more ways than one. Him using his legs and his arm has been very beneficial for this offense. But how about the legs? He led them with 62 yards rushing last week, had a couple of massive third down conversions where the pocket broke down. The last 2 weeks, you had Jack Cohn and A.J. McCarron that you went against with Houston, but a combined 9 sacks those last 2 games. Trent Harris for Houston has just been eating up. So are they going to be able to get to McClendon here? They've been missing Tim Ward the last 3 games, and that's been a little bit of a struggle, but Trent Harris has been filling in when Ward is out. Ward has been filling in earlier in the season when Harris went down with an injury. So some injury notes. Jeff Badette back in practice, listed as limited with that thigh injury that sidelined him the last, I guess you could say, game and a half. So that will be big for Vegas. I'm taking Houston to win here. It was a tough one. I went back and forth a little. I'm just not sure that Vegas has quite enough to be able to pull an upset here. I think they're at a low point in their season, but you could also view that as kind of back against the wall, a little bit of wounded animal mode. And, it is true that players in this league may not be as concerned about their record as they are at other levels because they're just here to simply ball out. And they're just here to put stuff on film. Look at Houston. They haven't been great for us, especially if you're backing them. 4-4 against the spread. Actually started out 4-0. So that's 4 straight they've dropped against the spread. They are 3-5 to the over. That is crazy to me. This is a team that came out, scored, 33, 44. They were balling offensively. And just 3-5 to the over. They are 3-1 against the spread at home. Again, take from it what you will. I'm going Houston to win, but I am taking Vegas to cover. Not a best bet, but I think this is a 20-18 type of game. So I also lean the under. Keep an eye on the weather in Houston. I did see a chance of thunderstorms in the forecast. Again, I don't know what really to make of that. It's tough to bet games just based on weather, but if you already like the under, that might be a point of emphasis for you to have on your side. I'm going Houston to win. Like I said, Vegas to cover. Zook, are you on board with the Roughnecks? They've let us down a little bit the last couple weeks.
I am on board with the Roughnecks.
You think Vegas covers?
It's so tough that I would not bet it. No way.
It is a tough number. I actually thought this number would come out at about 3 or 4 and gain some steam on Houston throughout the week, but just not the case. It's kind of stuck at 6.5. Again, total is 43.5. You have two teams that like to throw the ball around a lot, but are not great to the over. Mikey is all over the money line. I think we had it at plus 210. Pretty good value for a little sprinkle. I think if there was an upset this year outside of Orlando, DC that you were looking at, this is the time. I'm way more confident in Vegas to pull this off than I was with San Antonio to beat Houston. So we'll see. That game's going to be interesting. 11:30 a.m. local kickoff. And we get it on ABC. So finally, a game on ABC that doesn't involve the San Antonio Brahmas. Thank you, XFL schedule makers, for doing that for us. Well, Zook, this is how you know we're dedicated on Springball Boulevard. We got a full preview for you of the Paxton Lynch Bowl. And if you don't know, here's a quick synopsis. Paxton Lynch wins the Orlando job over Quinten Dormady in training camp. We're going to talk to Dormady here coming up next. They both played in the week 1 loss, but Dormady was then accused of selling the playbook. So he was not with the team weeks 2 through 4, or 2 through 5. That was a waste of pretty much the entire half the season for the Guardians as they tried to investigate this. Paxton Lynch continued to get smoked behind a Swiss cheese offensive line. 3 weeks later, Quinten Dormady is cleared. Lynch gets benched and traded to San Antonio. So that's why this is the Paxton Lynch Bowl. Will he start? We'll see. Jack Cohen hurt his ankle. Reed Sinnett broke his foot. Kurt Bankert cracked his ribs. So maybe it would only be right for the Brahmas to start Paxton Lynch here and give their 5th quarterback of the season a try. Why not? What do you got to lose? We saw what happened when players traded in the season, go to their old teams. See what happens? TJ Stormont traded from DC to Orlando, ends up beating DC. Maybe that's the effect that they need for Paxton Lynch. So let's look at the San Antonio offense. Realistically, like I said, 3 quarterback options going into this week. Jack Cohn really battled last week. Have to give him that. Jawan Pass technically 1-0 as a starting quarterback, although they didn't score an offensive touchdown against Arlington in the game he won. Paxton Lynch hasn't won a game as a starting quarterback all season. In fact, I mentioned Orlando probably would have topped Vegas back in week 5 if they rolled with Dormady. They put him in the second quarter. If they started him, I bet they win that game. It could get interesting if we see Dormady versus Lynch. You kind of put a silver lining on a game that's not very exciting. Actually, Paxton back in his old college number, 12. Does that get him his swagger back if he ends up starting? The run game was better last week for San Antonio. We talked about the 20 yards they mustered against Vegas in week 7. Much better this time around. They improved almost 130 on the ground versus Houston. A lot of that was Jaquez Patrick eating up. He had 16 carries, 96 yards, and a score. By far his best effort all season. Thought he ran really hard. And he was effective in the pass game as well. Landon Akers, 5 catches, 62 yards for the Brahmas. They ran 72 plays on Sunday, which was 21 more than Houston ran, and probably they're high on the season. Statistically, they've done way worse than the game they put together against Houston. One of their better efforts, especially in week 5, 6, and 7. San Antonio was completely lifeless offensively. At least they built a little bit of momentum by tying this game, sending it to overtime, although they couldn't finish it. This Orlando pass defense is a little susceptible. I don't have any faith in the Brahmas to necessarily repeat what they did in week 2 in the footage we just showed you and drop 30. In fact, only I think 23 or 24 of those were offensive points because they blocked the punt and returned it for a touchdown back then. So I'd like to lean the under, but the game scares me a little bit because Orlando's 6-2 to the over. And the XFL has this thing dating all the way back to 2020, where when you get two teams at the bottom of the standings together, you have this random explosive game. We saw it with Vegas and Orlando. Wasn't that 0-4 or 0-5 teams going against each other? And there was 67 total points, which is damn near close to our highest total of the season. It rivaled Seattle, D.C. last week. Back in 2020, we saw it with the LA Wildcats and Tampa Bay Vipers. They played like a 41-34 game. They were the worst two teams in the league in the standings. So that's what scares me a little bit. Do we get that random offensive shootout? That's why I won't make the under my best bet, although San Antonio is 1-7 to the over. Yikes. They did cover last week, so get another win against the number there. Let's look at the Orlando offense. A few things to keep an eye on injury-wise. The San Antonio secondary had Ryan Lewis and Jack Corner, both to the IR. They're both starters. Now, on Orlando, XFL receiving leader Cody Latimer has not practiced this week with a knee injury. So we await his status. Kind of checkmate there. You get Latimer, who's been Dormady's security blanket all season, actually even dating back to Paxton Lynch. Guy's 560 receiving yards this year, tops in the league. If you lose him, and his, every week seems to be 8 catches for 60, 7 catches for 50. He'll have a big game, 11 catches for 120, something like that. That's tough to replace a guy like that. Jordan Thomas is a guy I kind of look to step up in that hybrid wide receiver tight end role that Orlando rolls with in this spread offense. But they have to take care of the football. San Antonio, very opportunistic with the turnovers. We saw it against Houston. 2 late game situations. Remember, back in, was it week 4? Seattle and San Antonio. 15-6 game. Dragons up 9 down the stretch. Danucci throws a pick. Made it a game. Luckily, their defense held. Same exact situation. Mirror image. Houston last week, up 15-6. Same offense. June Jones, A.J. Smith. You think they would have learned from each other. Houston up 15-6. 3 minutes left in the game. Interception. This time, San Antonio capitalized and scored and took it to overtime. So you cannot force balls against this secondary, even with those 2 guys out. They still have some studs back there. Barco's a phenomenal player. Cam Kelly, another one. Dormady, I thought, took a step back in week 8, cooled off a little bit, but still threw the ball 43 times. And again, they didn't do a good job protecting him, so not all that's on him. He had 303 yards passing. Delonte Scott will tee off on that offensive line if they don't figure it out up front, and they have some other dogs in there. Jordan Williams, another guy you got to keep an eye on for the San Antonio defense. This is tough. I went back and forth on this one. In fact, I changed it pretty much right before the show. I'm going Orlando. Cody Latimer potentially being out scares me away. And this is one of the few times all season where I'm actually going against my own power poll. And I have San Antonio at 7, Orlando at 8. I think Orlando splits the series here. Remember, they were beaten pretty badly back in week 2, and they weren't happy about that. They've cleaned up some of the special teams issues that they've had. Borregales has been a serviceable kicker. Punt game could use a little help, but you see their punt coverage making some big plays with Dedrick Thomas last week. So this Orlando offensive line, it really scares me. I think you get a game here into the mid 30s. If you like the under, go for it. But again, watch for that explosive game randomly. Zook, we were more confident in Orlando going into, I guess, week 8 than we were coming out of it. They took a pretty big drop off. In fact, I put them at 6, dropped them to 8. Kind of a big difference when you look at the up and down of the season. But are they back to old Lando? Is this a team you want to fade now going forward?
I went back and forth as well. I couldn't pick this game. I ended up just picking it because San Antonio is favored.
Yeah.
I'm just going to agree with
Trust Vegas, right? Yeah.
I think I'd rather gamble on croquet in a backyard. I mean,
let's play 1,000 pickup sticks and bet on that. I mean, I'd rather. Listen, we're gonna watch every game, right? This is what we do. We love the XFL, and there could be some interesting storylines here. Like if Paxton Lynch gets to play against Dormady, that's interesting.
Sure, yeah. I'm not gonna say I'm not gonna.
How do you bet on it, right?
I don't want to bet on it. You're gonna hear me like almost every game this week. Like, I want no parts of it.
Yeah, you want to think the no-brainer here is to take the under, considering San Antonio 1-7. To the over, and they kind of ugly the game up. I've said all year, San Antonio Brahmas are the Iowa Hawkeyes of the XFL. They play this brand of football where they muck it up, they ugly it up, they play great defense, they keep these games low scoring, and they give themselves a chance at the end. In some games, it came back to bite them. St. Louis week 1, that kind of changed the whole course of their season. If they're able to fend off that comeback, get a win over A.J. McCarron and the Battlehawks, we might be talking about a playoff team here. That sunk them pretty badly week 1. And it just proves in this league with the high flying passing offenses, you cannot muck it up and expect to score 16 points like they did against Arlington with no offensive touchdowns and win a game. I think Orlando's capable of getting into the 20s here.
Now that I see Mike's pick, I should have went the other way.
Well, he kind of loves the Brahmas, especially when I told him that Paxton Lynch may be starting.
Right.
That's his guy, right? Oh, man. San Antonio, Orlando, that game's on ESPN2. Finally. They take the Brahmas off ABC for us. That was getting to be a little old. Well, if you're with us live, like we said, make sure you drop a like on the video. We are getting late into the XFL season here, heading into week 9. Subscribe to the channel. I'm begging you. It's free. Please get us on track here for our goals, for our subscribers, and we will pay you back with a PS5 if you entered. You have to subscribe to the channel. I'm going to be checking for whoever wins the entry. Were they subscribed? Nope. If it's not, right to the next entry. So make sure if you're playing that you're subscribed to the channel as well. I said a little earlier in the tease, we got a chance to sit down with Quinten Dormady. What an interesting story that he has both on and off the field from his journey. He went through Tennessee, Houston, Central Michigan, 3 different colleges in his career. He played a little bit of high school ball in Texas. He grew up in Iowa. He's the father of 3 children, and he just faced a ton of adversity this year, right when it looked like things were going his way and he was going to become the Guardians' starting quarterback. Enjoy. Quinten Dormady. We'll be right back on Springball Boulevard. From high school ball in Texas to Knoxville, H-Town, and Kalamazoo, where he finished his career as a Central Michigan Chippewa and MAC West champion, Quinten Dormady, welcome to Springball Boulevard, now with the Orlando Guardians and the hottest quarterback in the XFL currently. Thanks for joining us today, Quinten. Appreciate it.
Yeah, appreciate you guys having me. Thank you.
So before we jump headfirst into football, I did want to touch a little bit on your background. More importantly than the quarterback of the Orlando Guardians, you're the father of 2 beautiful twin baby girls. And I'm not sure if a lot of people know the background story here. We're the same age, and I think you've been through a hell of a lot more adversity in your life, in football and your life, than I have. That's for sure. Yeah. If you're comfortable, tell us a little bit about the trying experience that came with the birth of your twins and how that maybe changed your life forever.
Yeah, so I actually have 3. I have a 2.5-year-old as well. Little girl, so she's enjoyed watching dad play and come to games, and she actually understands. And then obviously the twins, they're I have a boy and a girl, so I got my boy out of the deal, so hopefully he plays, but we'll see.
Oh wow.
So no, but like you said, I mean, it was a tough experience. As parents, it's something that you don't want to have to go through. So just to give the background for everyone listening, I have boy-girl twins that were born at 24 weeks. My wife went into labor pretty much in the middle of the night, and we got up to one of the best hospitals in Nashville, in the country, really, but at Vanderbilt, and they were born at 24 weeks. They had about a 50% chance to live, and had an emergency C-section. They were born at 1.5 pounds, and spent 4 months in the NICU. And there was a lot of ups and downs there, but overall, definitely from stories and from like my wife's friends who have gone through similar things, for them to both, one, be alive, and two, to be healthy, is definitely a miracle. So yeah, definitely tough experience in the life aspect, and then like you said, football hasn't been any easier. So happy that everything turned out good and everyone's healthy and good, and but part of life, and God has us and has our back, and we're definitely happy about that. So
yeah, I think it's definitely part of parenthood that sometimes you can take things for granted, just looking forward to finally being able to meet your child, and you just never know. You really, really never know what it's going to throw at you, and the amount of adversity that both you and your wife faced. That's just an incredible story, and I wanted to make sure that people know that first, that you're a great father before just a football player.
appreciate
But
that.
this is a football show, so we'll get into it a little bit. How do you think that whole experience then impacted your career?
That's a good question. I think, kind of reflecting back, I don't think there's much more in life that's going to be tougher than that situation. Puts life into perspective, obviously, that anything can be taken from you in an instant. Don't like to think about the what ifs or what could have happened, but it could have been a hell of a lot worse. And like I said, we're thankful that it turned out the way it did, and I think that kind of, like I said, put life into perspective. Football isn't the only thing. My family means everything to me, and for I posted on my Instagram story a couple. I guess it was after this game. My whole family was down there, so got to take a picture on the field with the whole family, and I posted that they're my why. That's why I play. They're the reason that I'm still doing this. Through the ups and downs of even this season. So definitely grateful for them to be part of my support system, and grateful that they're on my side, and that's why I'm still playing. That's why I think I'm playing well, is because I do have a good support system, and not only for my family, obviously, but my teammates. They've been there for me through the ups and downs of this season, and that's what make great teams. So obviously trying to turn the season around here at the end, and get some wins. So
And I think it's a true illustration of your character. Obviously, we live in a social media age. You talk about being on Instagram and stuff, where I think the situation you went through this year probably would have broke a lot of guys, especially guys who may have not had like a negative experience in their life like you had already witnessed. So it goes to show you just keep doing the same things every day. You don't get too far away from who you truly are. And I don't think a lot of people probably expected you to stay with Orlando with 7 other teams in the league. We see a lot of quarterbacks moving around. Paxton now in San Antonio. So for you to really stick with Orlando and the coaching staff to trust you to start the second half of the season is really cool. Going back a little bit before Orlando, you have 3 different schools. What was it like to be a starting quarterback in the SEC back in 2017 and kind of deal with the tail end of the Butch Jones era? Obviously, that staff recruited you, and then having to make a decision when there's a complete new regime coming in at the end of your, sophomore, junior year?
Yeah, at the end of my junior year there. College was definitely massive roller coaster. You know, it was, there were a lot of good things that came out of Tennessee. I think, you know, obviously, God puts his toughest soldiers through the toughest situations, and I think, you know, he put me through a lot, but it's made me who I am today, and you know, as well as the life stuff that I've been through. So I'm don't wish to change anything, but it was college was tough. You know, obviously, like you said, got caught the tail end of the disaster, I guess you could say, really, that Tennessee kind of went through there for a few years, and ultimately decided to move on and went to Houston, and ended up kind of I had shoulder surgery there at the end of my junior year, after they decided to go a different way at quarterback. So I got shoulder surgery that I was playing injured with, and ultimately went down to Houston and had a red shirt. My shoulder just wasn't quite ready, but got to meet some cool people. I see the D-Eric picture there in the picture.
Yeah, I had to throw that up.
Yeah, D King's my guy, man. He's awesome dude. So
I think he was showing off a little bit. I think when he came in, he's like, let me show Quinten. He's getting too many reps. Let me show off and throw this insane touchdown pass. Probably the play of the year.
Yeah, I obviously talked to him after the game. It's like, dude, that was freaking wicked. I mean, that was an absolutely unreal throw. And then I get back here and turn on the TV, and it was number 4 on Sports Center. Then it went to number 3, and it was that play. And I'm like, Jesus, it's gonna. But no, I texted him right then. I was like, dude, that number 3 on Sports Center, nice job. That was a wicked play. I mean, yeah, that's a once in a lifetime type play, man. But no, so I met some good people there, and ultimately from there, that staff got fired. So second staff that kind of got fired, and then went to Central Michigan, and you know, had a great staff, at SEC caliber staff up there. And at that point, that being my 5th year in college, I'm an older guy. I'm married at that point, and I just wanted to play ball, and didn't care about facilities. We were in trailers because they were building the new facility that's there now, and but I mean, it was an awesome experience. Really loved playing ball up there, and put everything, you know, into perspective. It's not about the diamonds and the glitz and the glam and all that stuff. It's ultimately about playing ball, and that's, you know, that's what I've said about this league and most of my interviews is we're all here to play ball and have fun, right? I mean, that's football's a game. It's an awesome game that we can, you know, play and get paid to play. So it's an awesome experience. But yeah, I wouldn't trade anything as far as college experience goes. There's a reason that we go through stuff, and you know, maybe that's why I'm here now. If I, you know, didn't go to 3 different schools, who knows? But it all worked out.
Yeah, and I love watching the MAC. I think Coach McElwain is a big reason why. Always fun. And you had Charlie Fry as your OC, which is really cool, a guy with a lot of NFL experience. So moving on to the Orlando Guardians here. I was there in Camping World Stadium week 4 against Houston, where it seemed like the season hit a turning point, where it was either like get blown out in the rest of the season, give up, just write it off completely, or turn things around, go out to Vegas, play in one of the games of the year, and come out of that moment knowing, hey, we're really good offensively. We just need to have a more complete effort. I think a lot of the reasons you guys were losing games were special teams related as well. So do you share that? Like, did week 4 for you guys kind of seem like it was the low point of the season? And then how has the morale changed in these past 3 weeks in the locker room and just the overall culture in practice and in the team meetings right now?
Yeah, I mean, week 4, that was my last week that I wasn't with the team, so can't really speak to that part of it. But you know, whenever I did get back here, I guess it was right after that game, because week 5 was Vegas, I think, right? So
yeah.
You know, when I got back, we had some hard conversations as a team, and you know, kind of ironed everything out from the mess that had happened there, But I mean, I thought from then on, I mean, everyone's been supportive of me, and we kind of just put it all behind us and went out and played ball. And then, like you said, Vegas was an awesome game, but like you said, just didn't really play a complete game as far as offense, defense, special teams goes, and just kind of ran out of time there at the end. But since I've been back, it's been awesome. I mean, been in really close games and just haven't put it all together. And then last week to put it together against the best team in the league was something special. And I think we've been had high spirits. For the last 3 weeks, it's just about let's go out and put it together. Let's continue to have fun. Like I said, football is a game. We're getting paid to do it. And that's something that not many people can say. So just trying to build off of it, go out and continue to have fun, playing the game that we all love, and see what happens there at the end of the season.
Going to ask you one more before we let you go here, Quinten. I always thought, even coming into the season, that they did a really good job putting this roster together offensively from a skill position player standpoint. So obviously Cody Latimer, I think he's the most NFL ready guy in the league. I mean, every single week he's there. You got Eli, Charleston. The list goes on and on. The two running backs have been phenomenal. Now you add KD Cannon in there, who makes a great catch. Jordan Thomas. Everybody coming together and playing together. But that the narrative is going to be you're the savior because the season turned around when you came in. How do you make sure that the other guys who went through all that hell that you kind of missed out on are also like part of the picture too? Because everyone's going to put it on your shoulders. They're going to be like, if Quinten Dormady's playing, we'll win. If not, we'll lose. How is that kind of a mix? Because it's been everybody, not just you, that's been in this turnaround.
Yeah, I mean, I'm glad that you said that. Because I can say it as much as I want in any interview. I mean, I've continued to say that if the O-line doesn't block, if the running backs don't, put their head in there for the hard-earned yards, if the receivers, don't run the right routes and catch the ball and make spectacular plays, then, I mean, I'm just a guy out there, right? So, I mean, this is 100% a team effort, and that goes for everyone on the team, defense included. I mean, they've completely turned it around and are playing as hard as they can. I mean, there ain't no quit in this team, and there never will be. Like you said, the coaches have put together a really good team, so that's a credit to them. And Shane's calling really good games offensively, and I'm just out there dishing it out to the real playmakers. So. That's part of the quarterback position is you get all the fame and you get all the crap that comes with it when you're losing. But I'll continue to talk about my guys because they're special players and they all contribute. And even it's a tough situation here. Like you said, we're stacked as far as skill position goes. I mean, we can't even dress guys that would be playing on probably just about any other team in the league. So that's tough. But I mean, it's awesome from my perspective because I got a ton of weapons and we can roll guys in and out and everyone's making plays. So yeah, really appreciative of those guys. Blocking up front, running hard, and the receivers making plays and doing what they're doing. Makes my job really easy and makes it a lot of fun to go out there and complete a lot of balls. So.
Well, Quinten, we want to thank you for taking time to be with Springball Boulevard today. There were moments in that Player 54 documentary where kind of at the end of the show, you see T-Buck and he's in the corner of the locker room and you just feel the pain. I hope Player 54 goes back and shows the complete turnaround that has been this second half of the season. Because as you know, it's not always wins and losses. You have to just improve every week. And regardless of what the scoreboard says, since week 5, you guys have gotten better every week. Now you have a late playoff push here the rest of the season. We wish you the best of luck the rest of the season. You handed my DC Defenders the first loss. That was really tough for me.
I bet.
You ruined my perfect season, and now I have no choice but to root for you the rest of the way. Thank you for sharing your story with us.
Yeah.
And hopefully get in touch with you soon here. Thanks, Quinten. Appreciate it, man.
Yeah, appreciate it. Thanks for having me on, guys. I really do appreciate it.
Thank you, Quinten Dormady. Wish you the best the rest of your football career. A well-traveled quarterback, been in a ton of different situations. And like I said in the interview, Quinten and I are the same age. And he's been through a hell of a lot more adversity than I have in my life. So I appreciate that, him taking the time to join us. Very professional, very humble guy. Could have packed it in, left, played in a different league, and made a big stink about the situation. It was a really tough one for him this year with the XFL, but put his head down, kept grinding, and eventually got this team a win over the DC Defenders. What you guys didn't catch was off camera before we started the interview. Quinten said to me, bold move to wear that DC hat. I said, hey, we've been winning all year. If I took it off when we lost, I'd get buried more by you people than when I would if I just left it on. So I had to wear that around Quinten. I'm sure he was happy about it because he had the leg up on me in the interview there, but always great to talk to him. Hope to catch up with him. And more interviews coming on Springball Series, guys. We're trying to get you all the talent that we can before the season ends, and we got a couple special ones coming up, so stay tuned for that. Well, we got some Sunday games to break down. Noon kickoff, DC, Arlington. If you told me at the beginning of the season that DC was going to be an 8.5-point favorite in week 9 against Bob Stoops, I would have told you that's insane. You're underrating Arlington. I had them second in my power poll to start the year. I thought on paper this team was excellent, and they were my pick to win the XFL South. Could still happen. Surprisingly enough, this could still be an XFL championship game preview. Don't count out the Renegades quite yet. 7-1 against the spread for the Defenders. My record, like we mentioned on Thursday, 9-7 against the number. So over 3/4 of my wins on the season and my bankroll entirely is on DC. So I'll continue to ride, but this one I was a little hesitant on. Reason being, we aren't quite sure about Jordan Ta'amu's shoulder. So keep an eye on that, right? He was clearly in pain against Seattle. He had to come out for a few series and ultimately gutted out another 4-touchdown performance. But I have a feeling that this is the week for Jordan to rest a little bit, right? I'll tell you why. The shoulder is very sore. A.J. McCarron kind of dealing with the same thing. Anthony Beck taking a gamble and says, we really need to beat Seattle to make the playoffs. So let's give Nick Tiano a shot and see if we can do just barely enough to beat Vegas. Well, I'm wondering if Reggie Barlow will use that same mindset as Anthony Beck did and take the gamble, maybe start De'Aaron King instead of Jordan Ta'amu, give that shoulder some rest. There's still a home playoff game to be clinched for DC, but since you swept both St. Louis and Seattle, you only have to win one more game. So you have Arlington week 9, San Antonio week 10. You win one of those, you lock up a home playoff game. So maybe this is the Eric Dungy spot, right? You haven't had him get a shot at all this year, and if that De'Aaron King package has trouble, which it did a little bit last week with the fumble, maybe you go to Dungy for a bit if Jordan's not able to roll. Very good Arlington defense. They give up less than 75 yards on the ground, so kind of a counter to that DC rushing attack. It's a guy, though, in Eric Dungy, also a dual threat. And he lit it up in the Carrier Dome in Syracuse. Funny enough, if you saw my Twitter today, I was thinking back to old college matchups. I like to go into these games and think about who is meeting again in XFL 2023 that played an instant classic during their college days. Well, Eric Dungy in 2017, quarterbacking Syracuse to a miracle upset of number 2 Clemson back then. Guess who was the Tigers quarterback? Kelly Bryant. Left the game before halftime with a concussion, and his Tigers ultimately went on to lose that game. Now, they're not expected to start, but Kelly Bryant is on the Renegades, and Eric Dungy is on the Defenders. So a couple things go their way. They may see themselves thrown into action. It could be destiny. But like we said, the DC run game definitely about to face the toughest challenge of the season. Abram Smith, Rykel Armstead, they've been a great 1-2 tandem all year, but definitely going to have their work cut out for them. running up against guys in that front seven. Josiah Coatney, TJ Barnes, the big fella, Will Clark. Now, some devastating news for the Arlington Renegades. Bob Stoops telling us in the press conference that Donald Payne, their leading tackler, has been shut down for the season. High ankle sprain. So that's tough. The secondary's been solid, though. They picked Quinten Dormady off a few times last week. They actually lead the league with 19 takeaways. And it's like a little half and half, honestly. It's not all picks. It's a half picks, half fumbles type deal. So don't expect DC to go off for 40 points here. I think there's going to be a lot of hard-fought yards that need to be gained. Flipping to the other side of the ball, Luis Perez, now of the Renegades. Listen, the defenders have been a thorn in his side all season. And if you're Luis Perez, this is the third time you're starting against Greg Williams, who loves to just come after the quarterback. And the first time, he got benched in a loss back in week 2, that disgusting rain game out in Cashman Field. Second time, he played a little bit better, but I'm sure Perez still has bad memories of that goal line play where right before the half, he's rolled in, Blandino comes down, reverses it, Rod Woodson loses his mind. Like, that's a tough play for a quarterback's confidence to take away a touchdown from him. Luis Perez, I can't imagine he has any trouble finding motivation for this one. DC has been tough for him, but look at Arlington. One of the worst teams in the league against the number, 2-6. They're also 2-6 to the over. And found a weird stat. In away games, they're 2-2 against the spread, which tells me they're 0-4 in the hub. What? This is exactly the opposite of what I thought would happen at the beginning of the season. It was a big reason why I picked Arlington so high in my projections. You're playing at home. You got the facilities right there. That's a built-in advantage in this league where every other team is traveling every week unless they're playing you. So the 4 times the other teams in the hub got to stay home and play at Arlington, they're 0-4 against the number. So it's not been pretty for the Renegades or the Renafades, whatever you want to call them. You should be pretty confident in DC this week. Just take a look at Jordan Ta'amu's status and follow me on Twitter. I'll have it for you. What else do we know about Arlington? Davion Smith has been running pretty hard. They have to be better inside the red zone, settling for too many field goals, especially for a DC team who's 4-0 against the spread at home. Pretty incredible number there. Taylor Russolino's a good kicker, so you can rely on him for 3 points, but 3 points ain't going to beat the best team in the league. Letty Brown, I thought, has been a great addition to a backfield who simply went through so many guys. Smith is like the last one standing. Went through Adrian Killens, went through Keith Ford, Kenneth Farrow on the IR. It's just a rotating stable of backs, and now they got pretty solid with Brown and Smith here. Finally finding a balance. They have some flashy receivers, but none that really blow you away. The way those burners on DC between Chris Blair and Lucky Jackson have just blown away everybody who did not expect them to burst onto the scene the way they did. Of course, my DC defenders are going to be the pick here, Zook. I know I said I was a little hesitant to potentially, well, you don't even have to put those on one at a time. I think it was pretty obvious what we're going here. I'm more concerned about the spread and your thoughts on the spread, Zook, than I am the straight up pick. I've been riding DC all year. I was only a little hesitant because Jordan is on such a roll. And if you don't have Jordan, what are you going to rely on? You're going to rely on the run game. Well, the Arlington Renegades, the best run defense in the league, allowing less than 75 a game, like we mentioned. So is this the Eric Dungy spot, who he can throw it around too? I'm not knocking King's arm. He's thrown a couple touchdowns this year. I think he's capable, but it's tough when you haven't started all year to go in and do it. If Jordan plays, I'd be confident of laying the 8.5 with DC. They've been a total wagon this year. Zook, any thoughts on this cover potentially? Is this a spot you look to back DC just blindly, knowing that they've covered all season?
No, I think it depends on the starter. King has proven from last week being in that he's going to turn the ball over sometimes. Jordan has taken care of the ball a lot better.
Right.
It comes down to a turnover battle. So this is another game I want to stay away until if you're going to bet, it's going to be last minute just to find out.
That's a good point as well. Some of these numbers have moved. Like, I was shocked last week. I got Houston at 4. It moved to 6.5. Like, that was one I would have been detrimental. I lost anyway, but I would have been so mad at myself if I waited for 6.5. The lines are pretty sturdy this week. They haven't gone anywhere. I expect people are awaiting AJ McCarron news in this next game. But as far as the DC game goes, you can wait this out. We haven't had too many practice reports this week so far. See what's up with Jordan Ta'amu. I'd be comfortable laying the points if he's going to go. Even if he's not 100%, he could play through pain. He's a tough guy. Mikey Manziel also going with DC, who won him some money last week, surprisingly enough. And that was a lot of talk just to get to the best game of the week, right? We do cover every game here on Springball Boulevard because we know we got fans of every team watching, but this is the real deal. I could have spent the entire show on this game. Seattle, St. Louis, the sequel, part 2. Who gets the silver medal in the XFL North and a third crack at the DC Defenders? Well, just 7 short weeks ago, these teams squared off under the lights in Seattle. Donnie Hagman sending a 44-yard dagger through the hearts of Seattle fans. And now with both teams being swept by DC, this is a real chance for the Battlehawks to clinch a home playoff berth and for Seattle to stay alive and hope they can get some help with the tiebreakers in Week 10. Much like we told you, the DC-Seattle game was going to be entirely different from Week 1 as it was in Week 8 the last time out. This is also going to be a very different ball game from the 20-18 game we saw in Week 2. Both offenses have really found their groove. Even with the game off, A.J. McCarron, the runner-up to Ben DiNucci in passing, which is impressive to me. Took a whole game off, and he's still second in the league in passing yards. DiNucci trails McCarron with 2 less passing touchdowns. But here's the difference. In the interception column, it's not close. Double-digit picks, now 10 for Ben DiNucci, 4 for A.J. McCarron. That is the difference between 6-2 and 5-3. We shall see. So many things to love about this matchup, guys, even outside of the playoff picture that we just broke down to you. Did you know you are getting the number 1 passing offense in the Seattle Sea Dragons and June Jones against the number 1 pass defense with Donnie Abraham and his brother Devin in St. Louis? Incredible matchup here. A treat to see. Anthony Becht explaining to us in the presser, he had a lot of guys that were banged up in the secondary. And I was impressed with what they did against Vegas. Tim Harris was inactive. They had a couple of safeties that came out during the game. McClendon was only 13-23 for 159. Had a touchdown pass against them, but they didn't pick him off. And of course, they didn't really play well against the run. The run defense has not been the strength for St. Louis this season. And I'm not sure how that applies to Seattle, who doesn't run the ball a lot, but it's weird, right? To see a successful team, for as good as St. Louis has been against teams outside of the Defenders, how lousy their run defense has been. And maybe that's overinflated a little bit. And I thought that was the case because DC runs the ball so much more than any other team. But Vegas racked up 208 on the ground. So if you're June Jones, maybe you implement some run scheme here. I don't know. This is such a tough one. I don't think you're going to be able to stop the Seattle run and shoot in a way where you're going to be able to hold them to 18 points. 18 points the last game. They had 2 offensive touchdowns. DiNucci had under 200 yards passing. It's going to be tough to do. You saw what they just did against the DC defense. Obviously, a lot of what I'm saying trending towards the over, right? Well, St. Louis is 3-5 to the over. Don't get too caught up in that. I think more what you want to look at if you're betting this game is the pace of play. Zook and I were talking a little bit before the show about the San Antonio Brahmas, and we mentioned it, how they muck it up, they make it ugly, they keep it a low-scoring game, give themselves a chance at the end. It's the opposite with Seattle. They're going to go up and down, big explosive plays. They're going to make you outscore them, right? And that is where this game is trending. I don't think St. Louis is going to be in their comfort zone very much with a team in Seattle that is 6-2 against the over. So I could see a 34-28, 34-31 style ball game here. I think the most important thing in this 60 minutes of football and potentially overtime, it would be back-to-back weeks if they did that in the Dome, is who gets the ball last. Because we see both these quarterbacks able to put together late game drives. Ben DiNucci just did it to scare DC. The defense couldn't hold when Chris Blair had that 70-yard touchdown, but DiNucci was balling out, 18 points in the fourth quarter, which is as many as they scored against St. Louis in the first game. And A.J. McCarron has been excellent in the 2-minute drill down the stretch. They've won more games in the fourth quarter coming back than anybody. So, going to be really tough here. A little bit of a chess match. These quarterbacks definitely want to outplay each other and ultimately win MVP. They're the top 2 candidates right now. Think about all the playmakers in this game outside of McCarron and DiNucci. Josh Gordon, Jacquor Pearson, Hakeem Butler, Darius Shepard. It goes on and on. You got Philip Lindsay against Brian Hill. Those are 2 guys who were NFL starting running backs at one point in their careers back in 2017 and 18. So 2 teams trying to find their identity back in week 2. They now have clearly found it. For Seattle, big explosive plays, let DiNucci fly downfield. And for St. Louis, it's A.J. McCarron working with Bruce Gradkowski, and their pre-snap procedure is just so fascinating to watch. I hope Greg McElroy is calling this game. Drop a comment in the chat if you know who's on the call. I hope it's McElroy. Long methodical drives kind of get defenses off balance, and that's what St. Louis has been doing very well, mixing a little bit of Brian Hill in with that pass scheme. They got great receivers. Obviously, I think it's 1A and 1B with Seattle and St. Louis as far as the deepest receiving core. I think DC can make a case with Chris Blair and Lucky Jackson as far as the top 2. But from top to bottom, man, Seattle can go to anybody, and they have all season. St. Louis has showed that as well. When Austin Prohl is like your wide receiver 4 or 5, you're damn good in that room. For Ricky Prohl, his dad. Guys, we're in for a dandy. This is the old school. Jim Haslett, June Jones, Ron Zook, over 100 years of coaching experience combined against the new school. Anthony Becht, first-time head coach. Bruce Gradkowski, young offensive coordinator. Was not that long ago that he was in the NFL himself. And Donnie Abraham, who grinded his way through the high school ranks and all the way up to the XFL. Never even wanted to be a coach originally. He just wanted to play. He becomes a coach. He's had a hell of a job with that defense. But to break your heart, Zook, I'm going with the St. Louis Battlehawks. In a game this close, I look for one thing. 2 things. One more important than the other. Who has the ball last? And who's at home? Dome field advantage for St. Louis here. It is tough to hear. I witnessed it in person. It is tough to hear. And I know June Jones simplifies his playbook, but Ben DiNucci struggled in D.C. when they had that raucous atmosphere week 1. Add 20,000 more crazy people on top of that crowd. What are you going to get? Seattle win.
Seattle wins. No question.
Well, make your case. What is it about the Sea Dragons that you are so confident? Because we were talking before the show. You're throwing some crazy ideas out at me.
Yeah, I think they're going to blow them out.
Blow out. We have a bold prediction from Chris Zook.
Seattle's going to blow St. Louis out.
Oh, I can't wait.
All right, so here's what I think. I think that the offense is going to spread them out, and DiNucci's going to use his wheels, and Philip Lindsay. They're going to run the ball early, and
they're going to have to.
They're going to bring a couple people into that box to try to stop it. They're going to have to spy DiNucci, and then he's going to shred them in the second half.
Hey, if the Seattle pass offense is good enough, which it may be,
it is,
to go against a number 1 pass defense that has been excellent in the secondary, has battled through injuries, it hasn't mattered. It's been next man up. If they're able to do that, they should probably be the playoff team. And I know we're going to have the tiebreaker scenario, but if what happens is anywhere close to what you're saying, where DiNucci has a 350-yard game, takes care of the ball, throws a couple of touchdowns, that to me is more impressive going on the road to St. Louis than that kind of ugly game back in week 2 where it really could have gone either way. I have to give St. Louis credit for that win. It was a huge win, and it gave them the confidence they needed to be 6-2 at this point.
I feel like the first couple weeks are hard to judge teams. They were just getting acclimated to each other.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of moving parts, and it really took Seattle quite some time to get going.
Right. Yeah, they had the 5-game win
streak. So unfortunately, they did score off with DC and St. Louis in the first 2 weeks. But they've put a great product on the field since, and I feel like that the tie-breaking rules are going to change things, and I really hope that June does run the ball to open up that throwing lane.
Very
because they do.
Point.
they have 5 wide receivers that can gash
Yeah,
you.
and St. Louis has not been good against the run.
And
I was never more shocked than Vegas running for 200 yards. It's a team that struggled to get 20 or 30, and they were running the ball at will. Jalen McClendon had a truck lane every time he took off to run the ball. And like you said, Ben DiNucci doesn't get enough credit for as mobile as he is. He'll find those lanes, and he'll run for 20 yards, and he's learning more how to slide.
he might look back
So-
at you and say, "You ain't catching me."
You ain't catching me. Yeah, I was shocked that this line was won simply because the home advantage for St. Louis. Usually you think that'd be worth a couple points. Mikey Manziel certainly thinks it is. He's going with his favorite guy, AJ McCarron.
He just learned to fade me over the past. He jumped ship. He faded
true.
you, and now he fades me.
Well, probably be a better idea to fade me because I have no idea what my best bet's going to be. But just finishing up the point here on St. Louis, Seattle before we get out of this one. I really thought this would be 2.5 because I figured the home field advantage that St. Louis has had, it's been incredible. It didn't work out against DC. Obviously, they play one of their worst games of the season. Maybe odds makers look at that. I don't know. There's just some momentum with this crowd. They're bought in. They got that faith on their side now. It's hard to put in words what exactly happened in St. Louis against Vegas, but you just felt kind of some magic in the air that the team got over the 2 DC losses, and now fans have forgot about that, and they're ready to get another shot against DC in the XFL North title, where they got to win this game first. It's not going to be easy to go through Seattle. What would be a shame, Zook, is what I'll say. If Seattle wins this game, and it's like a 35-31 game, they put up a lot of points. If it goes to the tiebreaker and they still don't end up making the playoffs, that's going to be disappointing. We see in the college football playoffs, a committee selects the best 4 teams. So you have eye test, right? That goes into that. You do not have eye test here. This is going to come down to a tiebreaker similar to the NFL. And we've seen in the NFL, sometimes the better team gets left out of the playoffs.
Well, I think that's part of why I'm predicting they're blowing them out because they got to. They have to gain those points back because who knows how many St. Louis will score against what? The Guardians last week?
They have Guardians week 10.
It's going to be tough.
Yeah, and the one thing I'd say about that is I think with veteran coaches, you got to keep your guys even. Don't go out there and say, we got to run it up on offense. Got to play good defense as well. Like this is AJ McCarron. And, people have been in my DMs. What's the status of AJ? I'll just update and tell you this. After the game, Anthony Beck told us the reason he did this was so AJ'd be ready for this game. So there's no doubt in my mind that this was a 2-week decision. They said, we think we have enough to get past Vegas with Nick Tiano. So why risk AJ re-injuring a shoulder and then having Nick Tiano in week 9? Beck played this the right way, and AJ's going to play unless something crazy happens and, he re-injures himself before this game. But I'm fully confident AJ will play, and clearly the number is as well, because if AJ wasn't playing and anybody in Vegas had insight that he wasn't, it'd be Seattle -4 or 4.5 or something like that. So I think AJ's going to play, and we're going to get a damn good game. I cannot wait for this one. But we were in St. Louis last week, so we can't go back 2 weeks in a row. Where haven't we been this season? H-Town. Boulevard Bowl Tour, stop number 6. Heading back to Texas. I was there in February. 37 degrees and windy. Looking at the forecast now, looks like about a 50-degree improvement. Whew, can't wait for that humidity. So tell me your recommendations in H-Town, guys. Where do I eat? Where do I get a beer? Great culinary scene from what I've heard. Is the rodeo in town? I've heard about the Houston rodeo potentially impacting some of the Roughnecks attendance. I don't know when that is. If it is, I'll go watch it. I've heard you guys in H-Town have underground pathways as an alternative to your sidewalks. I'm not familiar with that on the East Coast, I'll be quite honest. That sounds like a Texas thing to me, that the city is so big and so spread out that it's hard to get around. So tell me how to get around in Houston. What do I do? It's our 6th stop on the tour, like I said. And I'm hoping AJ Smith doesn't hit us with the GTFO, as he has so many defenses this season. So coming to Houston, like I said, 11:30 kickoff, probably earliest local kick we've had of the year, as the Roughnecks take on Vegas. If they win this one, don't tell me this game doesn't matter. It's a big game. If they win this one, they clinch the home field advantage, and this won't be their final game inside TDECU Stadium. Looking forward to that. Back to Texas, and hopefully back one more time for the championship game in San Antonio. Let's move right in to our Boulevard best bets. What do we think about the tour game? Well, I was back and forth a little bit on Houston, Vegas. I ultimately punted on that game. I could not find an angle for the side or the total. So I moved along the card. And let me tell you this. I really couldn't find a second best bet that I loved. So I'm just going to go with what I know, and that's DC minus 8.5. Is this the best spot for the Defenders all season? No. When they were 10-point favorites against Orlando, they lost outright. This team is better as an underdog or a short favorite. Keep an eye on the quarterback situation. If Jordan plays, I think you'll be okay. They'll do enough. Arlington is going to have trouble scoring the football to keep up with DC, who is 7-1 to the over, and they've been putting up 30 points pretty much every week. So going DC minus 8.5. The lock is the over in the Seattle-St. Louis game. And I know last time I did this, it was the Houston-Seattle over. The problem is, Zook, Houston has Brandon Silvers. Sure. St. Louis has A.J. McCarron. I can trust A.J.'s going to score points. These quarterbacks, I'm fascinated by this matchup because you know Ben DiNucci is sitting there thinking A.J. thinks he's better than me. And he is. So this is the Ben DiNucci proving ground here. I know you're saying, oh, there's no chance he could win MVP. If he throws a great game in this one, he may be able to have a chance at the end of the season.
He may. I mean, statistically, sure. If you're
over 2,000 yards passing for DiNucci.
I know, but
the turnovers suck.
I always say the turnovers. I sound like a broken record, right? I think you're pretty safe with this one.
Like the over.
Because I think Seattle's putting up 40.
Here we go again. Well, actually, let me give you some credit because you said that last week.
Sure did.
Against DC, and you were 7 points away.
Mm-hmm.
18 fourth quarter points certainly helped you out there. In fact, we were sitting there at halftime, and I was thinking, man, this over is dead. It was like, what, 22-6 at halftime or something like that? Yeah. Maybe even less. Didn't look good for over bettors, but, man, they went off in the fourth quarter, combined for 30 points. I think Seattle, St. Louis is just going to be up and down. It's going to be anything you can do, I can do better. These quarterbacks are going to be on their best game. And I think the defenses are just going to be lost because once that St. Louis crowd gets going, the Seattle pass defense has been this year. I mean, what was that with Chris Blair? Bryce Thompson just completely whiffed, and that lost him the game. So I don't know if there's quite the emphasis. I love Ron Zook, but is there quite the emphasis on defense in Seattle as there is offense? You think there would be with Jim Haslett.
I don't know if that lost them the game because you got to think, like, what did I say about that game? Why didn't he go down? Like, why did he score?
Yeah.
Did they let him score on purpose? We don't know that. All I know is they gained more time on the clock by whiffing or letting him go or whatever it was. So.
Well, yeah, I mean, it was a short completion. I mean, we could get into that all day about back and forth, and I've seen situations like that. But I don't know. It looked to me like Thompson at least tried to make the tackle. I'm just not that confident.
I'm sure he did, but I'm talking about the coverage. There was nobody back there to help.
Right.
They brought it, so.
Yeah, I mean, it did end up, making it a game where it ultimately wouldn't have been. But yeah, 46. I mean, think about it, guys. If you get 27-20 here, you cover. So I like this number. And I know St. Louis is 3-5 to the over, but it's okay. It's going to be a different pace of play. And Zook, you kind of tease your best bet. Hey, if you think they're going to blow them out, why not take them +1, I guess. You're getting your team as an underdog, I think, for one of the first times all season.
I think it's the second time.
Have they been an underdog anywhere else on this card? I honestly can't think of a game.
I think there was
where they were underdogs.
I wish I would have looked this up.
I don't think they have been. Honestly.
Matt brought up a good question pre-show. If I love them to win as big as I do, why did I not take money line? It's the same thing. I keep saying I like to make money. It's a best bet. I'll take the point. Give it to me.
It was a 2-point game last time.
What were the odds? 105, 110.
It's very small.
I'm not losing a bunch of value by getting the point.
Yeah, there are people who will get mad at us for saying there's no difference between -110 and -105. So we just want to tell you, like, it's okay. Take the 1 point. Now, I actually just realized this as I'm on the air. Seattle has not been an underdog all season. Isn't that crazy?
Is that for sure?
It definitely.
I feel like they were one.
Or no, Houston. Yep. That was the one, and they won outright.
Correct.
So the one time Seattle was a dog, they went outright.
What were they a dog by? Can we remember?
3 or 4?
2.5. I think it was 2.5.
was something like that. Yeah, it was under a score.
Somebody go out there and stat check us.
Yeah, stats and info. But yeah, I mean, not many opportunities to back Seattle as a dog is our point. You're getting one here. Zook is going to go with it.
I'm so confident that I broke my rule.
Yeah.
Remember, you gave me a little crap about betting on them last time, but I never said I wouldn't bet them live. I never said that.
Plus 300 they were at halftime against DC. I
bet them live a few times throughout this season after I said I wasn't betting them.
Yeah.
But that was more of a I'm not betting them best bets.
I mean, you could give me any reason here.
I'm taking.
I'm just not buying it. I mean, you're going against the Bible, and I will say, correction. Zook trying to skimp on his record here. He is 5-3. Trying to get one back on me here. I see what you're doing.
I didn't do anything.
5-2. He did lose his best bet last week.
I did. I am 5-3.
Don't let him forget that. So we are.
I'm not forgetting it. We talked about it that I am Seattle and I'm 5-3. So
there you go. We are 14 for 24 as a show. So 14-10.
Mike, you say that was 58.
58%. Yeah. So I said beginning of the year 55. We'd like to be a little higher. We'll see what happens in week 9. Tough card, guys. These numbers are getting really sharp. Really, really sharp. The only really value play I found is the over. Mike, I think, is onto something here, though. Is it crazy to say that? Because his 2 best bets hit last 2 weeks. What is it about Mikey Manziel? Is he learning? I think maybe, you know what? The light switch flipped when he came back to Studio Z.
That's what it was. We taught him how to bet.
Is it that? I think he hasn't lost the play since he moved home, if I'm correct. So we'll see. Mikey's onto something here with Vegas. I actually kind of agree with him here. I like the 6.5. And apparently so did Piper, because she's going to include it in her parlay. We were a little bit worried, Zook, that there was a potential for our loyal Piper, who we love so dearly. Would she fade us because she was sick of us this week after we kept kind of giving her a little advice, little treat here, slip her a little lick of ice cream here and there. Whatever we gave her, she was inclined to take our picks. But now look at it.
I think that hair got inside her, that clown hair.
Yeah.
Sunk in.
She's not going to fade us. Thank you, Piper. Appreciate that. In fact, for the first time all season, Piper's listening to Mikey Manziel. What kind of corruption has gotten into your dog and into your studio?
Well, every time he comes over to record his segment, he gives her French fries from McDonald's. So
Vegas plus 6.5. I don't hate it. She loves the over. Piper loves points. Again, every touchdown scored is another treat. And DC money line, again, kind of goes along with what I was saying, right? 8.5. Don't love it. I'll take it. Money line's minus 390. Put in a parlay. Who cares? We'll get plus 360. So that is our Boulevard best bets plus the Pipers parlay. Great show for you here on a Thursday night. Really enjoyed talking about XFL Week 9. Again, make sure you like the video, subscribe to the channel. If you don't know, the Week 9 tour destination is Houston. We're coming to TDECU Stadium. Cannot wait for the weekend down in H-Town. And guys, we're coming right down to the end of the season here. I had a realization that there's only 11 games left. And it's wild, Zook, because we've broken down, recapped, and previewed each one of them. And I think if you went back on 32 games, we would at least have 30 of them that we personally put our own money on. So it's been a long ride here. After this week, there'll only be 7 games left. So please enjoy the XFL while you can. Tune into these games, whether it's on ESPN Plus or wherever you watch television. Please watch the league because they are trying to do something special and get to 1 million viewers with Sea Dragons, Battlehawks, and some of the other games that are on ABC this week. Well, for Mikey Manziel and for Chris Zook in the control room, I am Matty Fresh. And remember, there is no such thing as football season. We'll see you guys Tuesday for a special episode on a Tuesday night. Take it easy.